Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Community Capital. It is my pleasure and honor to be here with Andy Wirth and Bode Miller, co-founders of Peak Ski, my apologies. Glad to have you two here today. We're here to talk about not only your journeys individually, but also together as business partners, entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and avid lovers of skiing and just winter sports and snowboarding. Before we get too deep into the weeds, I just want to say how great it is to talk to you, have you here, Bode. I've never really interacted with Winter Olympian before. I believe you have more medals and wins than I can count on both of my hands. And as a former athlete myself, I think the Olympians are always the pinnacle of the sport. And I think it's great to see what you've done in your career and how you're transitioning that into building your legacy with Peak Skis. And then in the same breath, Andy, you having a very large and extensive background in hospitality and winter sports, community service, social responsibilities, and I think I'm honored to have you both here today. Thank you for spending some time to sit here and chat with us. Let's talk about Peak Skis, right? It's a company that you two came together to build and put together. I want to say inception's 2021 or 2022. I'm seeing mixed reports when we did research here.
Yeah, technically 21 is when we stood up and registered the company, set up the structure, but then we launched it April of 22, Antonio.
April of 22.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you guys are very successful in that first year. I believe you guys had a lot of accolades throughout the press. You guys were the leading in the top performance ski for consumers in the market at the time of last year, and you guys have some pretty good accolades. And I wonder how that came to be. Was it in the thing where, Bode, you just took your years of expertise on the slopes and as an athlete, and you was like, there has to be a better way. Throughout my years of skiing, like I found that the way I handle my skis and treat them, perform better versus what you can buy and get, what the standard is. Is that kind of how it came to be?
Yeah, it's been quite a long time since there's really been much call it true innovation. We've had kind of some I would call them functional innovation, things like rocker, early rise profile, companies figuring out kind of the ends of the ski, how to make the ends work better with side cut for a variety of different circumstances, conditions. But in my case, yeah, I had an idea that I'd sort of been working on and, exploring for a really long time, 20 plus years. But as I quit skiing and I was kind of in different situations, I was with Bomber for a while, got locked into something that wasn't really a good company, good solution. They weren't building what I wanted them to. They were very sort of stuck in the traditional thinking. And then when Andy and I sort of got together, I don't think that alone, knowing that I could build skis that were better or comparable and better in certain ways than the existing market, was appealing to either one of us. I mean, I don't like rock fights, like you said. I don't like losing. Andy doesn't like losing. You go into, fair fight against companies that have been there for 50 years, who have established market share and, really have pretty loyal customer bases in a lot of cases. I mean, the ski world is it's a small space, and certainly word of mouth is really powerful, but people have their brand loyalties and they just stick with them. They're willing to ride out a couple years where a company might make crappy skis because they just like the company and they're just used to it. So, I think Andy and I both came into this with a pretty skeptical attitude when we first started analyzing, okay, how does this look? And is there really a true upside for both of us? We've been in business long enough that we're not looking necessarily for annuity style things, and a lot of the boutique ski companies operate that way. They sell a couple thousand pairs of skis and they might throw off a few $100,000 each year, and they're kind of flat. They're not really trying to capture new market share, and they kind of do what they do. And we went into it knowing we could build very good skis, competitive skis. We didn't know, the timeline of that is always a challenge. I was confident I could do it really quickly. I think Andy believed in me, but just the basic market knowledge says, like, you're looking at 18 to 24, 36 months, but from going and starting till you have a really, a pretty functional ski. And that's if you're hiring, people out of other companies, the best engineers, whatever. But I did have that advantage of having mentored underneath engineers at K2 and Fisher and Rossignol and Atomic and Head. So, I knew what I was doing, and we definitely I would say that was the more confident side of the business. The other side of, does it make economic sense, and what's the scalability of this, and can we get to something that's truly meaningful, $100 million, $200 million, $500 million company? And that's where the other stuff that was really kind of ended up being the catalyst for starting the company really came to light. The manufacturing process hasn't changed since the 60s, really. I mean, they put computers on presses, but they're still the same presses. They just now have computers instead of manual chocks that used to spin like a nut. Now you just digitally adjust those things, but really nothing has changed. And I had a great relationship with a guy who I discussed it over the last 10 years or so, the possibility of sort of changing the manufacturing process. And when we combine those two together, okay, we can do this to start up. We'll build good skis. We'll sell them direct consumer. The margins are good. We can play with numbers. We can, get out in the marketplace, and then we'll hit the sort of home run with the manufacturing process and become a global player. That was really what got us excited about it. But the building skis stuff, I would say neither of us would have done it had we just had this part of it. We would have been like, I mean, we could build skis in my garage for no money and no hassle if it was just for me. But, we both have enjoyed the sport. We're both outdoorsmen and love it and want to see it grow and be better and have people enjoy it more and be safer and do it for longer times. And, we're battling obviously climate change and lots of other stuff, but I think, we're on a path now to really make a significant impact on the sport over the next 5 or 6 years.
That's beautiful to hear, and I think you are making that impact. I think because your skis are doing very well in the market. You guys are getting a lot of publicity, great reviews, and I think what I find interesting is because I'm not an outdoor, I'm not a winter sports person. I didn't grow up with winter sports. I've seen it on the Olympics every now and then, but going through Peak Skis and just looking at the product, the team, the way you guys have crafted everything and built everything, it makes me want to I think I might try this out. This could be something new for me. And I think coming across you guys' website, I think you guys have an ethos that I found very, very interesting. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's precision, performance, innovation, and grit, right? What really stood out to me was the word grit being an ethos. Usually you see resilience, perseverance, but grit, that's a very specific word. And for me, it gives me like a very certain mental image, because again, a former athlete, just being in the weeds, just grinding it out, just hard work, elbow grease. I like grit. Where does grit fit in, like in your personal ethos? And how does that come together to the company? Like what are your grit stories?
Really appreciate that and noticing that. And I got to say though, with Bode on that first question, the only thing I'll hit on, there's about 16 elements there. He's right. We are into asymmetric warfare. We wouldn't go into anything without kind of a very distinct advantage, and we do on product and other things. But to your point, we had been friends for quite a while. When I had retired, 5 years ago, and he was retired, we ended up circling together, and we were those two guys at the coffee shop with too much time on their hands. From different angles, we arrived at same places on many things, including skiing in mountains and life and the like. And in that process, Antonio, I realized that it was much more than his name and fame that were intriguing about Bode. He became a good friend, but also his business mind, his development mind, somewhere between Chuck Yeager and The Right Stuff and that movie Good Will Hunting. He's got this Mensa level brilliance, this engineering brilliance and creativity that is extremely unique. And that, coupled with his success as an athlete, it is remarkably unique, and back to that asymmetric position, critical relative to the product. To answer your question, that friendship had us. I would return from the Middle East on some other work that I do, and hanging out at my place up in Big Sky is where we kind of hatched this idea, this concept of peak. And that is actually, it largely started with different parts and pieces, but really that ethos that you talked about, that you mentioned, and focus on what is ultimately 4 key words. We don't have mission values, and we've done that with McKinsey and others and other larger companies that I've run. But in this case, we liked going with ethos, and we knew that this was a touchstone for us, the North Star, the guiding element. And honestly, it was at that point particularly, and thankfully it resides today in our operation, a big part of who we are, the people that work here, the great team that we have. And I'll let Bode talk about that element, but I'm really glad to hear you say that, how it stood out to you, because that was by design. You know, the ACTs, the SATs, or whatever, there's this, what word doesn't match or fit, you know, kind of in the typical corporate lingo or lexicon. It doesn't matter what era. That's obviously one that isn't typical, because you might typically see resilience or what have you. With that said, I'm glad to hear that registered with you. And yeah, there's personal but also professional stories for us. And Bode, I'll let you take on grit and how we came up with that, because it's really important, and I'm very glad you hit on it. It's defining for us in our company.
You know, I would imagine it's very important, because I find that when I look at mission statements or ethos, I always tend to look at the first one and the last one, right? Those are kind of set to let you know which ones are important, but not necessarily in terms of order, but just like, this is the first thing, this is the last thing. If you leave here with anything, you know that we are about this and this, at least at the minimum, right? Because if we skim, I skim top to bottom, and I usually catch the first thing and the last thing, right? And so I really like that grit is in there. Doesn't matter where it is, because only 4, but grit, again, stands out to me. And I'm hearing you both talk about this. It seems that grit and passion for skiing and just breaking it and just shaking things up lead to the innovation that you guys are seeking with your skis, with reaching a global market. Now, let me backtrack. So you're reaching the global market and then being direct to consumers. Like, how is that scalable from a small, from the team? Is it scalable to reach the 140 million some odd global skiers out there?
Well, so I think there's 2 parts to that, and that was exactly where Andy and I came into this, was like, if you want to build really good stuff and you want to be competitive price-wise, there's a reason why a lot of manufacturing has been driven to, sort of Eastern Bloc countries and China. It's difficult, right? It's an old established sales channel of, manufacturing, distributor, retailer, customer, right? And each person wants their margins. And so it ends up making your prices really tough to manage economically. A lot of the major players in the space who have been around forever, they work with single-digit EBITDA numbers on good years. They're not making 30. Andy and I are more like, I don't like things unless I'm up in like 30+% EBITDA, and that's kind of on the low end. Ideally, you're above that. So the scalability is a problem for where we're at. Like we'll probably get to 20, 25,000 pairs of skis if we didn't have a plan to change the manufacturing. That's where we'd start running into some different bottleneck problems, right? Really having good, clear, 2-way communication with customers becomes a problem at a certain number, right? Like fulfillment becomes a challenge at times because it's all chunked into little periods of time where you're trying to get 25,000 pairs of skis out in a month and a half when everyone wants them. And yeah, every part of it really, we want to have that real relationship. The scalable part is the manufacturing. We changed the system from taking 45 minutes to build a pair of skis and costing, call it $125, $130, something like that, to building a pair of skis in 8 seconds and having it cost us $50 or $60. So, then we're an OEM partner. There's lots of different sort of business paths that are open, obviously, if you have that kind of manufacturing capability. And there's 4 million skis that are on the books that are manufactured each year. They already do tons of white labeling. So different companies build skis for their competitors. It's what we're doing, right? There's established companies that make skis that are building our skis right now because we don't have the capacity to build all of our skis. So It's not like we're breaking new ground there, but we will be a major player in that OEM market. So companies will say, wow, these guys can build our skis better, cheaper, and faster than we can. Let's do that, because that's what they already do with certain lines of skis. Like they don't have capacity for a specific model of skis, so they'll say, okay, let's shop that out to, these other 3 companies. They'll build it for them, and they save money. So it's just an economic decision, and it's ironic because they're direct competitors. So sabotage, you'd think, would be a serious problem, but they're all just trying to make the numbers work. So they're all just, anything that drives revenue, they're into. So I don't think that'll be a real problem. And then we'll have 10 customers, but we'll be building 1 million or 1.5 million pairs of skis, right? The OEM market right now, skis that are labeled one company that are produced by a different company is over 1 million pairs already right now each year. So, that's kind of the scalable side of it. And if we're able to make somewhere between, call it 30 and 75 or $80 per pair, and you're making 1 million pairs, and that's profit, you have the best manufacturing company in the world for skiing by a multiple. it's
And Antonio, again, I got to compliment you for picking out this item. Scalability is not an uncommon phrase, but and by the way, the one-on-one contact we have with our customers is great. In fact, I know what doesn't scale is I just happened to this morning come in early. We personalize every single fulfillment package that goes out to people, and I hand sign each letter. I doubt I'll be able to do that when we get up to 15, 20,000 units, pairs of skis, and that won't scale, but hopefully it will. The critical element on back to our ethos and innovation is expressed in what we call Project Treadstone, and that is, in fact, I can use my B school background and say that's where true value creation is, and the reason why Bode and I came out of retirement to do this has many, many elements. We didn't come out of this to take on the ski industry with some kind of energy and that's negative. In fact, it's not. We're very respectful of those who are our friends and people that own and operate these ski companies. They're great people. They're smart and sharp. We have the benefit and challenge of being new. We have the challenge of being new, largely, although we've been in the industry for a while. But we also have the benefit of being new, which is a full new approach to it. And kind of the Yogi Berra-ism that I've come up with is the least important thing about our company are the skis, but they're critical. The why on this is expressed in Project Treadstone. That's where value creation is. And that's what Bode was alluding to, this group that we're working with in Germany, to just fundamentally, comprehensively re-engineer how skis are made. The whole process, automated, decreases costs, substantially automates it to the point where it increases precision, but at the same time speed. And this is the benefit of being new. And we're working with a world-class company that works with Mercedes-Benz and Bosch and other companies. Really doesn't have anything to do with the ski industry at all. And it's a relationship that Bode has from his ski racing days in Europe and the like. And that's really critical to what we're doing. It's not only the why on innovation and true innovation in that mode, number one. Number two, it enables the scaling that you're talking about, that we speak to, that's critical. Because for us to increase number of skis sold from 10,000 to 15,000 is great, but not inspiring. And it doesn't answer the why. We came out of retirement to take this on. It's really mostly about Treadstone and some of the innovation around that. And the other development criteria that we have in place with this group called Bieler out of Halbach, Germany, is we have 5 or 6 development criteria because we're mountain people. We're part of that community. We always have been, always will be. We're of, by, and for the mountains, winter, summer, fall, you name it. And in this case, we care deeply about the environment. Climate change is an exigent threat, and to the small extent we can, we do everything we can to reduce our footprint. But critically, one of the development criteria on Treadstone includes the very same machine that develops these skis is the same machine that's being developed to deconstruct skis and retask the materials, which I would argue is substantially is really better than just the recyclability. Skis are not great. They're not lithium-ion batteries, but will they end up in a landfill? They're not as bad as lithium-ion batteries, but they still have glues, resins, epoxies, and they'll be there for many hundreds of years, and that's not ideal, and that's not who we are, what we want. So the ability to deconstruct the skis and retask the materials is kind of the ultimate in recycling. We love that element that comes out of this process, but it really speaks to scalability. There's 4 million skis made every year. We think we can get to the point of owning a substantial component of the skis made each year on our process machinery in a couple of years. So it's actually quite exciting and answers the why. So why we're doing this and why we came out of business and came into this business, but also that Yogi Berraism of the least important thing about the company are the skis, but they're critical.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's beautiful. I, for one, did not know you could repurpose and recycle skis. I learned something new today, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I was going to ask you guys, because I know that you, Andy, are very, well, I think you both are very big philanthropists, and, you know, you give back to the community. You guys are on a number of initiatives and boards where you provide opportunities for those that want to learn how to ski. You guys have workshops, gyms, different types of programs for the youth. I think for programs for veterans, which thank you for that. And I was curious about Peak Ski's, you know, how it aligns with social responsibility and climate change, and how we're going to, you know, how you guys are offsetting our footprint. And I think it's beautiful to hear that you guys are already, you came into this thinking about ways to reduce and to try to help out and, you know, make a social impact while also innovating skis and changing up and just, you know, changing the industry up. Are there any other ways that the company is giving back to the community? And yeah, basically that's the question.
Sure. I'll take lead out on that, but this is another area where Bode and I come from different angles and background, but see it exactly the same way, and it's critical to who we are. By the way, I got a heavy shout out to this group called Share Winter. Share Winter is this nonprofit organization Bode's aware of, and I've worked on their board of directors, and they bring all aspects of skiing and outdoor sports to those that don't typically have the means by which to get to it and introduce the sport, because it's just fundamentally good for people to be in the mountains, whether there's Nordic skiing or snowshoeing or alpine skiing. And Share Winter is a group we support quite a bit and are big fans of, and that's just one of the groups that we support on an ongoing basis. And Constance Beverly, the CEO there, is just phenomenal. So an appropriate shout out to that group. But relative to your point, your fundamental question is, in addition to Treadstone and the environmental responsibility we all have, we also, every moment we look to reduce our footprint. We're in a state where, frankly, utility companies are not awesome relative to renewable energy. There's programs that look, feel, and taste like it, but they're just not, and that's just truth. And in this case, we're installing some solar panels and some energy storage here, so that every ski that we make and how we work with our operation here in Montana, we do everything we can to reduce our footprint, our carbon footprint and contribution. So there's so many elements of it, but philanthropy, but it all comes right back up to community. And we're part of this community, global community, but also critically in it. And let's face it, that's the word that's used and sometimes been diluted, if not diluted quite a bit, because folks take the community cape and wrap it around their shoulders. But in this case, it's way less about what we say and 100% more about what we do. And it's not only social, it's not only doing everything we can with the tools that we have to support active duty and veteran warfighters, some of the challenges they have. We're doing quite a bit there. Everything on the environmental side of things and on the social side of things sounds like a ESG thing, right? Because it is. You know, the social side of thing is helping folks that can't necessarily get into skiing and see the benefits personally. They can't easily see that. They don't have a line of sight. And so Share Winter really is a big part of our support and what we do to get that going. Bode's got a lot too. He's got the same DNA. Bode?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you touched on all those. There's some sort of pretty institutional issues with skiing in terms of introduction to the sport. And so Andy and I, we're on the board and investors and sort of, I guess, consultants for a company, Alpine X, that's working to bring indoor ski halls. They're the guys who started Great Wolf Lodge. They're big indoor water parks that were kind of across the country. they're going to build these indoor ski halls in more metro areas in the South, so that people, for a much more reasonable price, without having to, the geographical challenges of traveling across states to get to mountains, will have an opportunity to learn to ski, be exposed to the sport. The intro to skiing is really tough. We've had this kind of really pretty ominous statistic hanging over skiing, that like 8 out of 10, or in some cases 9 out of 10 people who try skiing for the first time don't do it again. And that, as an industry, it's remarkable. It's a testament to skiing in a way, because it's been a great sport. It's stayed around. It's resilient to economic changes. It's been successful for hundreds of companies, but it's kind of the intro is weird that way. It's not a very accessible sport for lots of reasons, but just that initial feel of being on skis is not super appealing to people. So we have this other company that I'm an investor in and on their board and work with. It's called Snowbond, and they have like a indoor treadmill that has wet plasticized material that you can ski on. And it takes somebody who's never skied before for $30 or $40 and gets them to be able to feel comfortable and confident going out and skiing a basic easy run on any resort in a half an hour, which to me is probably, among all these things, it's probably the biggest real life game changer of everything I work on, is the ability to take somebody who's never skied to confident to go out and actually enjoy the sport in a half an hour. It's usually 4 or 5 days of lessons and a couple $1,000s to get to that point, and that's a huge barrier to entry. So we have our hands in lots of aspects of this industry, and they all kind of are really synergistic and all focused on the same ultimate goal of reducing the barriers to entry, making it better, more enjoyable, better for the environment, and really more accessible. It's just good for people, honestly. Being out in the mountains and being outside is good, and we need more opportunity for that, and make sure that when people have that opportunity, that it's really fun, that it is exciting, and gives them that vision into, wow, I can go do something that's exciting and challenging and physical and social and outdoors.
Kind of shifting a little bit, and I kind of want to get into some of the accolades, and I kind of want to get into the boards themselves. I believe in the most recent Wall Street Journal press release, I think in December, they highlighted the Peak 78. Could you kind of elaborate on the design philosophy behind this model, and the significance of this board as it relates to the ski market, if you can?
Yeah, so the reason I'm snickering is that it hasn't got to where it needs to be yet, which is frustrating. And I hate to, if some of our customers were reserved it, this is the first they're hearing about that. That's a bummer, but tell them, reach out to us. We're in the process of switching manufacturers for various reasons, and that poses problems. It's shocking, but part of the challenge and why we're re-engineering the manufacturing process is because consistency is a huge problem in skiing. When I was racing, we would have 50 or 60 pairs of downhill skis in front of us to ski on, test, and narrow it down to 2 or 3 or 4 that were really good. And that's the best in the world, the highest skilled people putting them together, and there's just that much variance that you could easily tell this one's garbage, this one's good. And they're building them in the same spot, same person. It's just a very imprecise process. And so to take a ski that's really performing well and great and move it and build it in a different factory with different people is really challenging. Sometimes it can work, but a lot of times it doesn't work in my experience. So that was happening right during the evolution of the 78. And it made a lot of sense that it would be easy-ish because the 104 ski is unbelievable. The 98 ski is unbelievable. They're both at the top of their categories. The 88 ski is unbelievable. It wins accolades. So why not a 78? In reality, it should be our technology, the way we build skis should actually work better the narrower you go. We don't have a lot of side cut. We're doing a different mechanism. It all kind of plays better for a narrower ski. It's where the idea came from, was from a race ski that I skied on in 2003. So, it worked. It made me win the GS title against probably the strongest GS field that there's ever been. And I was, I don't know, the 15th or 18th best GS skier in the world that year. And I won the GS title because of that ski. That ski was just so far ahead of everybody else that it let somebody who was nowhere near the best in the world win the GS title, which is a aggregation of the overall year's results. So it's not a fluke. It's not winning one race where that can happen. It was consistently that much better that it took somebody who was inferior in ability and experience and put them on top. So, it all should have worked really smoothly. Instead, we had our first round of prototypes was not suited to be deck furniture, and the second round was definitely a huge step forward and to a place where it was competitive with the marketplace. But we don't want to go out there, as I said, and be competitive with the marketplace. We want to go out there and really open people's eyes and have people get on the skis and go, holy shit, these are just so different and better, and make everything easier. So we are close, I would say, but the concept, I think, was we got a little, call it a euphemism, we got a little ahead of our skis on that one, because at the time we were going to manufacture them in an existing thing. We were very confident we could do it, but then we switched manufacturers, and we're kind of, we've said it since the beginning, we're kind of building the plane as we're flying the plane, while we're structuring all the logistics around our flight plan and landing path and fuel consumption and everything else. So it's, like I said, this is where grit comes in. We just gotta, keep our heads down and keep hammering. We know we can get there. And we won't launch skis unless we're uber confident that they're gonna kick ass out in the marketplace. So
it's been a pleasure talking to you both today, Andy, Bode. I wish you much success on Peak Skis, and especially with your raise on the Republic Capital side.
I know neither Andy or I are salesmen. We don't like pitching, but I would encourage people to go check it out, right? Like this is one of those, chances to be a part of something that's driven by people who really care about it. I think that's my best pitch line is like, if you're jumping on board with people who really care about what they're doing and want to do it absolutely as well as they can, that's always fun. So
I agree. You guys, is there any parting words you want to say to our community or your community before we wrap things up here and depart?
I'll tie off on that those words you used there, and kind of the fundamental basis of this. It can't be understated. It can't be overstated. The importance of the environment, the community of folks that we call them our community of customers. Can call them lots of different things, and in the B speak and in the business school speak and more, but it really is a community of customers. And thankfully we have year 1.5 strong advocacy from our customers through service, through the skis themselves and more. And we're prideful in that. This is a business, but at the same time, our coming out of retirement to take this on is about everything you've heard and more, but it's really being part of this community, the mountain community. And right now we geographically choose Montana as our home, and that's our geographic community. But the world of skiing, the mountain life, and whether it be episodic through vacation or quick trips here and there, that's a really important part of who we are, what this company is about, our team, and also our community of customers. And we, I think a good example is how we think about that is in Outside Magazine, we did really well. First year out of the gates, we were ranked right next to a ski called the Vocal Mantra, and also Nordica Unlimited. And in an interview was asked, what do you think about that? I said, oh, it's remarkable. I love Vocal Mantras, and I deeply respect the Nordica Enforcer Unlimited and Enforcer. And those are skis that spent a decade getting to that place in that space. But it's more about those folks and what they've worked on, because they're part of the community too. They're our competitors in one way. We see them very much as part of the community of who we are and more. And what we're going to get done here over the coming days, months, and years is is pretty gosh darn exciting for certain. And thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time and your great questions and insightful questions.
Yeah, and if people come through Bozeman, our headquarters is set up as a meet and greet facility. People can come hang out, socialize, check it all out. We're sort of pretty open that way. It's a huge part of our company as well. So feel free to stop into Peak headquarters, Four Corners, right near Bozeman.
Okay, will do. I'll definitely try to stop by this year. I need to do some more traveling myself. But on behalf of Republican Community Capital, Andy, Bode, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to see you guys on the slopes on a pair of my own Peak skis. All right.
Sounds good, man.
Have a good one, guys.